even though we're certainly not where we need to be with the FDA yet, I feel like they are at least starting to understand, who we are, what we do, and like how important our products are to, just like the country in general and public health and whatnot.
Awesome. And our understanding is that vape shops are starting to get involved in the FDA fight. They're like reporting non-compliant brands. They're in relationships with juice manufacturers who aren't up to par, and that whole gambit.
Mm-hmm.
With so many different bills and initiatives that are swirling around in our whole digital hemisphere, how can a vape shop stay abreast of the regulations, Dave?
Well, the main thing I would say is getting that, it's easiest to get that information from, like trade organizations and stuff like that. Like here in Arizona, we have the Arizona Smoke-Free Business Alliance. I know I get emails from them just all the time. I know SFATA does that. There's other national organizations that do the same thing. Because like honestly, keeping abreast of the FDA regulations is more than a full-time job.
Yeah.
So, if everybody's kind of just doing it independently, it's a huge waste of time just because of how much efforts are being duplicated, and then somebody's going to get some bad information, and it's just kind of tough. So, I've actually been using this quote a lot lately when I've been talking to shops about advocacy. But Benjamin Franklin said when they were kind of discussing, hey, should America be a country? He said we either have to hang together or we're going to hang separately. And that's I can't say how true I really feel like that is here. Like, if we're all trying to fight the FDA on our own, or if we're fighting between each other for whatever reason, like, we are not going to survive this, quite frankly. But I think the best chance that we have is if we all get together and we combine our efforts and combine our resources and really show the FDA that we're not just we're not the industry that we were 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Exactly.
We are a real adult, grown up, mature industry that's doing important things. And they're taking notice of that already. So we just kind of just need to amplify those efforts, I think.
Awesome. And one tidbit for me is one organization that a lot of people don't know about, or if they do, they haven't joined, is the National Association of Tobacco Outlets. And it's one of my favorite sources because it covers local, state, and federal issues.
Mm-hmm.
And really it works to enhance the business interest of retailers in our space. And it also advocates to protect tobacco consumer rights and tobacco consumer interest. So if you advise your customers in your store to join NATO, it'd be, and not the NATO that Trump is tearing apart, the NATO, the National Association of Tobacco Outlets, NATO. It would also be a good option for a vape shop that's looking to remain on the helm of the vaping industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a funny story. I was just talking to a store owner just to tell you how the enforcement is working. I was just talking to a store owner a few days ago, all the way in Buckeye, that little, I think it's a tiny little podunk town in rural Arizona, right on the border of California. And he was talking to me, and he's thinking of phasing out his house juice, and even though it has the highest profit margin. And the reason why is because there was an undercover FDA/Prop 65 enforcer bought one of his bottles in Arizona. Then he signed up for his mailing list, but he gave a California address.
Oh, jeez.
And one of the items that he wanted, or claimed he wanted to buy, was out of stock. So the owner said he'd mail it to him. So he completes the sale on the computer, and then the moment that he does, out comes his Rent-A-Cop badge and his enforcement ID, and he cites the owner for a Prop 65 violation and said his agency would be in touch. And so meanwhile, the owner was just trying to make a living, and he's been roped into this hysteria for some unknown reason. And so moral of that story is that the biggest mistake that any business owner could make right now is assuming that they're too small to be a threat.
Yeah.
If the current election has taught us anything, it's that you don't ignore any threat, regardless of how small it appears. You just don't ignore it.
That's very true. That's very true. So yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think the regulations are getting to the point that, like, it's hard for one company to, regardless of size, to kind of do everything.
Right.
I'm seeing the at least in my experience, I'm seeing the industry kind of turn into different companies kind of working in partnerships. Where you have you have your hardware person, you have your juice manufacturing company, you have the retailers, you have the online retailers, and obviously some people can successfully do more than one, but especially if you're one retail shop, like, keeping up with the compliance issues on the manufacturing it's difficult. And I'll say, like, I'm a manufacturer full time. That's the only thing I do.
Yep.
And even with that, it's difficult to keep up with the
Of
compliance
course.
stuff. So I can only imagine trying to do that and run a retail shop.
Oh my God, I know. I mean, just like, I guess, I mean, would you agree, Dave, that find an FDA and Prop 65 compliant juice, period, would be probably finding, just make sure you're finding an FDA and Prop 65 compliant juice would be a top priority for any vape shop right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, like, while it's not a perfect solution, the FDA's registration thing is publicly viewable. So, like, as a shop owner, if somebody comes in and they say, oh yeah, no, like, don't worry, our juice is totally registered, you can check that. And it doesn't, like, cost money to check that or anything like that.
Awesome.
We actually we got a domain name and just forwarded the domain because they made it kind of hard to find.
Oh yeah.
So we registered. It's registeredvape.com. And if you go to that, you can just type in, that's not our website. It's just a redirect to the specific part of the FDA website.
Awesome.
And you can just type in the name of the juice, and it'll show you whether it's registered or not.
Awesome.
Now, Prop 65 is a little different. To my knowledge, I'll admit, like, I don't do a lot of business in California right now, so I kind of just, actually, I took a lot of your guys' advice on the compliance for the labels and stuff like that. But to my knowledge, there's not like you don't have to be registered with California for that, right? You just have to have the right verbiage on the bottles.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. And then I'm sorry, I should have asked this before we started the podcast, but do you remember there was a website that some of your folks gave me that had the exact verbiage and stuff that you had to have?
Let's see. Yeah, it's like actually a truncated version. I think it's Prop 65.
It was like Prop 65 info, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Prop 65 exposed or info or explained, something like that. And it gives you the truncated version of what you can include on the bottle instead of having to go through and find one element to list as an addictive chemical across all multiple lines. So that would be the easiest way to do it, is to find that little truncated version.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is, I can't remember the name of that, but yeah, that is something that we probably should get.
Yeah. There are resources out there, and I remember, like, I was actually able to find it reasonably easily just by Googling. I think I just Googled Prop 65 info and it came right up. I could be wrong about that, though.
Awesome.
But yeah, the information is out there, and as a retailer, it's important that you don't carry non-compliant juice because the juice company's not going to be the one that gets in trouble.
Nope.
You are.
That's exactly right.
Which is, for me as a juice company owner, that's great. But no, I'm totally kidding. It's been terrible for us too because all this time that I could be spent on marketing my product and selling my product, I've had to spend on paperwork and compliance stuff and like all that. That's not why I got in this industry. And I understand it's necessary,
Exactly.
but it's like, oh, come on, man.